This is the Rodney Bull Show, bringing you truth about money they never taught you. Now, here's your host, the man himself, Rodney Bull.
G'day, legends. And what's cracking, money stackers? Welcome back to the Rodney Bull Show. Today's guest is someone who's spent over 3 decades inside the financial system and has had a front row seat at how it really works. Paul Musson is a veteran investor who led the $10 billion Ivy funds at Mackenzie Investments. Just a few bucks, eh? And has worked at the highest levels of portfolio management and capital allocation. But what makes this conversation going to be most interesting today, folks, is after years inside the system, Paul stepped back and started asking bigger questions, thankfully, for those of us who are going to learn a lot from him today. So questions about how money actually works and how wealth is really created and why in many cases the system seems to benefit a select few, sadly, at the expense of everybody else. He's the author of a fantastic book called Capital Offence, Why Some Benefit at Your Expense, and the voice behind Political Economy, where he breaks down complex economic ideas into simple, practical insights people can actually understand. And what I really like about Paul is this: he's not pushing any BS. He's focused on helping people see clearly, think critically, and understand what's really shaping their financial future. So if you've ever felt like the system doesn't quite add up, which I've always felt that way myself, and you want a clearer understanding of what's actually going on behind the scenes, this is going to be a very eye-opening conversation, folks. So strap in, eh? And let's get into it. Paul Musson, welcome to the show, mate.
Well, Rodney, thanks so much. It's great to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure, mate. I've been really looking forward to having this conversation with you today. So, been looking into some of your work, mate, and just started reading a bit of stuff on your book. So I look forward to working my way through the rest of it. I think it's a book that everybody should probably get their hands on and get themselves a bit of education from the effort that you've put into producing that book, mate. So,
oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Could we just start out, mate? You give us a little bit of a short rundown and history on yourself, mate, so people can learn a little bit about you, and then we'll get into some questions.
Yeah, so I was born in Wales. Family moved to Montreal in Canada when I was 4. Moved to Toronto when I was 29, sleeping on a floor of an apartment, looking for work. First job in Toronto was in a video store working nights. That's how I got my start.
Yep. Been there, done that. Push trolleys
yeah.
myself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, it's just, it wasn't really planned. I was just sort of moving forward, and I adopted this attitude of do no harm. And
Nice.
I didn't want to be a burden on anybody, either financially, emotionally, and definitely not physically. And so just do my best to do my thing without harming anybody else. And I like to think, and that's how I end my blog, my weekly blog. It's a free blog, Political Economy. I end every episode with be free and do no harm. And I really think
nice
that
philosophy, mate. Nice philosophy.
Yeah, if all of us just focused on that, if you focus on being free and doing what you love to do and ensuring that you're not harming anybody else, it's almost impossible not to have a positive impact on society.
Yeah.
So imagine if everybody was doing that, the world would be a much better place, in my opinion. Anyway, so I knew I wanted to analyze businesses. I loved the idea of doing research, and there were a number of different jobs I took along the way, and one thing led to another, and I just focused on doing a good job, being reliable, not being a jerk, and it's amazing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, just
that's a good thing.
Doing that. It's not that complicated, Rodney. Do a good job, show up on time, do what you say you're going to do. Be honest when you screw up. Admit it right away. Don't make any excuses.
Don't be
a jerk. don't be a jerk, and then people want to have you around.
Yeah.
And now it's simple, but not easy at times, right?
Yeah. True.
And so one thing led to another, and I ended up with a mutual fund company, and then my boss retired, and so I became the team lead. And next thing you know, I'm a head of a group. We're managing $10 billion plus. And it was an amazing job, absolutely amazing team, company, clients. So I was very fortunate. But I found that over time, my passion became communication.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't have a passion for investing, I still do. I love it. But helping people understand what the hell's going on
Yeah. I'm
just
on that
really,
journey myself, Paul. Yeah.
oh yeah, well,
Not as
yeah,
deep into it
clearly.
as you, but I'm on it.
No, and your past episodes on money and helping people understand what the hell it is, and because most people don't understand the concept of money, it's so important.
Yeah.
But when I first started out making presentations to my clients, so my clients were financial advisors, stockbrokers, financial planners, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when I was young, my goal was to try and impress people with how smart I was. I might not have been as smart as I was implying, but make them think that I'm smart at least.
Yeah.
And in that way, maybe I could get the sale. They'll give me their money and I can manage their money and charge them a fee. And then over time, I'd start to get caught up in white lies or little things that I left out because I knew they might not have wanted to hear that. They might not have wanted to hear my truth. And so I can get their money this way. And then I said, what the hell am I doing? I said, I'm not doing this anymore. And I remember this day, I'm just going to tell the truth, whether people like it or not, whether it leads to a sale. And that's a better outcome because if I convince somebody to give me their money and my investment style is not appropriate for their clients, eventually that's not going to end well. They're going to leave just at just the wrong time.
Yeah.
That'll be a bad outcome for them and their clients. And so I said, I'm just going to tell people the truth because I've got nothing to be ashamed of. I believe in what I do. And
Can hurt you
and
sometimes, eh? But the truth will set you free.
yeah, it really did. And I forget who said it, but there's a line that when you tell the truth, you never have to remember what you said.
Yeah. So true.
Well, I just said the truth.
Yeah.
And boy, like it was so liberating and successful. Even more people gave me their money because they can feel it. They're not stupid,
Yeah. That's
right?
right.
And and not everybody, because other people said, "Well, I appreciate your honesty, Paul, but that's not for me." I said, "Perfect.
Yeah.
That's fine."
Yeah. Sadly, some people want to be lied to, don't they? Fortunately,
Well, yeah, no,
hard to
yeah.
understand that one,
And
but it seems to be the fact. The facts.
well, no, yeah, and there's a lot of that these days, unfortunately. I think I know why it's happening. Well, anyways. But so when I was managing money and taking this intellectually honest approach, I started noticing things going on in the markets, and in particular, central banks and their interference with what was going on in stock markets.
Yeah.
And then I came to realize that they were sacrificing the real economy, Main Street economy, on the altar of higher asset prices, Wall Street.
Yeah.
And it's not a conspiracy theory. They will tell you that they were trying to drive asset prices higher. And we can go into exactly how they were doing that and what I think their motives were, both in stock markets and in housing. But I think that they believed they were doing the right thing. I don't think they're bad people. I think they're very arrogant and delusional, self-serving, short-term oriented, but they're not trying to harm people. I don't think they're trying to harm the average person just to benefit the top 1%. That's what's happened,
Yeah.
but
Most
I
definitely.
don't think that was their intent.
I hope not.
And
I hope not. It's hard not to look at it
no,
sometimes that
well,
maybe it
no, I
was.
know it's very hard not to get really angry
Yeah, I do.
at what is happening. No, listen, I've been there, Rodney.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, Believe me, I've been there. And when I started writing my book, well, hang on before I get there. And so I started explaining to my clients what was going on and the great harm that central banks were doing. And and in an intellectually honest fashion, I would communicate because my goal was to empower people with truth and understanding rather than just trying to impress them with confusing language or terminology and intimidate them into silence. Well, we
yeah,
don't know what the hell he's saying, but he sounds smart, you know?
yeah,
No. And so a lot of clients over the years were telling me that, you're the only one that we know of that talks about these things in this way that we can understand, and then we can take the message that you're delivering and the analogies that you use. I come up with lots of analogies,
yeah,
and I can use those with my clients as helping me with my business. I thought, well, that makes me feel so good. That's what it's all about. We're all in this together.
yeah.
That's what capitalism is, by the way.
Yes.
Mutual benefit. You only benefit to the extent that somebody else is benefiting from your actions.
Yeah, 100%.
And
We're here,
so over
we're
the
here
years,
to
people
help and
say,
here to serve, eh?
yeah. And so people say, you should write a book about this, Paul. And so sounds like kind of a big job. I don't know. And over the years, more people were saying it. So one day I decided I'm going to do it. So in 2019, I started writing the book, um, not knowing how long it was going to take me. I knew what my message was, but it was quite an undertaking because I'd never done it before. Sort of learned as I went. It took me 5 years or so. And yeah, then I started this blog, which again, I did not really set out to start. I mean, I just started sending an email to my wife and my three daughters about what was going on every few days in the world, cut
Yep.
through all the bullshit from the headlines and the newspapers. And well, no, that's actually not what's happening. Here's why that happened.
Sadly, there's
And they started,
a lot of lies and a lot of propaganda that comes out, isn't there?
well, yeah, but even the people who are spreading it don't even realize what they're doing.
No, no, that's what
They
makes it
believe
even
it
worse, I think.
themselves. They believe it themselves because there's so much fallacious economic doctrine out there, economic laws put forth as people wish them to be, not as they are, because economic laws can be very inconvenient.
Yes.
And yeah, and my wife and my daughters were sending the email to their friends and whatnot, and then people were emailing me, "Can you put me on your list? I love what you're doing." But oh yeah, no. And then it just started to grow, and yeah, so that's how I ended up where I am today. Um, just helping people to understand what's going on because we
People need to
are
know, mate.
on
They need to understand exactly how it all
exactly.
how it
We
all
are
came
on it.
about, Paul, the history behind how the system actually was built. I've been on a big journey myself learning about it the last 5 or 6
No,
years.
yeah, no,
So
I can
thankful
see
to have
that.
stumbled across wonderful people like yourself to learn from, and try to find out the true depths of it. And it's pretty mind bending, it's very eye opening.
Well, it is, and 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 terrifying because the path that we are on will not end well.
And unless we change it and change it pretty abruptly, I feel it's got one trajectory.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's my goal is to empower people with the understanding and the truth to try and affect change from the bottom up like a grassroots movement because the change that's needed will not come from the top down.
No way. No,
It
because
cannot come
it's
from the top
benefiting those
down.
at the top, and they ain't going to give it up.
Well, it's benefiting them and the people from below don't really understand what's going on. We've been convinced that you can have your cake and eat it too, that debt and deficits don't matter, all this kind of garbage. And so we want more and more from the government, but the government doesn't create any capital of its own. All the capital it spends, it obtains from the private sector. either through taxes or borrowing or by printing money. And we can talk about exactly how that works. And so we all want more and more from the government. And if any leader said, we have to start living within our means, well, they'll get voted out of office so fast they won't know what hit them.
Yeah.
So it cannot come from the top unless it's demanded from the people, from the ground up. So we have to tell our policymakers, this is what we want. And our policymakers, I believe, they're not bad people. Then they will do it because that's how you stay in power. They like power, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
But yeah, so that's the goal.
Yeah. To me, mate, through my experience, Paul, comes down to education, eh? Like
Exactly. Yeah.
early on in life, as far as education in the so-called education system, which is not an education system at all, if you ask me, it's more of an indoctrination center than it is an education system. But um, since leaving school, I think I learnt more in my first year out of school than I did 10 years at school. And,
Wow.
I'm definitely on a real journey now, to know that education is key, and it's all, all this stuff is, it, I guess in some ways I feel like it's been hidden from us. And then in other ways, it just purposefully hasn't been shared with us. The information's out there, how to learn about all of this if you go looking for it yourself, but they're not going to share it with you.
No, absolutely. And I like to quote Mark Twain, who said, I never let school interfere with my education.
Yeah. 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 I'm definitely on a mission to be a lifetime student myself
Hmm.
now,
Good
mate,
for you. That's
well and
awesome.
truly. Well and truly.
Awesome.
Um, we'll get into a couple of questions here, Paul, eh? And
Yeah.
see if we can flow through, and you can help educate me and my listeners, mate. Um, you were 30 years inside the investment world, managing billions of dollars, Paul. You've seen how the system actually works behind the scenes. So, can you tell me at what point did you realize the system isn't working the way most people think it is, and that everyday people might actually be on the wrong side of it?
Yeah, so it wasn't a sort of one point in time eureka moment. It was, I think it happened over a number of years, like this slow awakening, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, that's wrong. That's bullshit. No, 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 what the hell's going on? Why are they doing that? And then understanding what the motives were and maybe I should just take a step back. As an investor, I felt that I had a very important role to play in society. And, I mentioned earlier, a free market capitalist system, you're only supposed to benefit to the extent that you benefit somebody else. So, for instance, you make a bike and I make a suit. We've both created capital. And then we exchange that capital with each other. Now I've got your bike, you've got my suit.
Yeah.
Now, very importantly, nobody suffered from what just happened there. You created capital, I created capital, and then we fairly exchanged that capital with each other, and nobody was harmed. That's the way the system is supposed to work. Now, we don't have direct exchange or barter. We use the medium of exchange called money. So you first sell your bike for money and use your money to buy my suit. But that's where the trouble starts when you use money.
Well, because the money that we use isn't money.
Well,
Currency. It's
now,
fake
now
as.
there's no, sorry?
Because it's not money, it's currency, and it's as fake as.
Well, yeah. And now money's, as you know, is very important as a
Very.
medium of exchange and a store of value, which I've heard you talk about before, and unit of account and all that kind of stuff. But, and there's nothing wrong per se with a fiat currency standard. I mean, a gold currency standard, the gold standard, especially the classical gold standard before the First World War, was very efficient. A fiat currency standard could be more efficient. The only trouble with it is that it is so easily abused by those who control it.
Yeah.
And this is where the trouble starts. So people need to understand that there's a big difference between capital and money. Capital is what makes the world go round. Capital is all the stuff that we produced, goods or services.
Yeah.
Money is just used to exchange all the good
And
stuff that we're producing.
so the
So the
goods and
example
services you would say are true wealth then, aren't they?
that exactly. So the example I like to use is, let's say you make 10 bikes. You've created 10 bikes of capital. That's real tangible capital.
Yeah.
Now, let's say you sell those bikes for $1,000 each, so you got $10,000. You stick that in your bank account. Now, what that $10,000 effectively represents is the 10 bikes of capital that you produced. So that $10,000 is temporarily storing your 10 bikes that you created,
Yeah.
made the world a better place with your 10 bikes.
Yeah.
So you've got that money in your bank account. You're going to spend it at the end of the year, go on a nice vacation. But before you get a chance to go on that vacation, the central bank doubles the money supply. Now, when the central bank doubles the money supply, when they increase the money supply, they do not first create any capital to obtain that money. They just create it out of thin air.
Yeah.
It has no
Oh,
capital stored up in it. It's got
no.
no capital. But it obtains capital as soon as it comes into circulation. As soon as it enters the economy, it obtains capital from the rest of the money already in existence. So as soon as that newly printed money enters the economy, it takes 5 of the bikes from your $10,000 and puts it into the newly printed money. So now your bank statement says you still have $10,000 in your bank account, but instead of storing 10 bikes, now it's only storing 5. And so now your $10,000 will only buy half as much as it would have done before the central bank doubled the money supply. And by the way, that's why my book is called Capital Offense, because the central banks take your capital from your money without your permission.
Yeah.
You do not vote for that.
No, not at all. No, it just dilutes the money that's already out there when that new money gets
Exactly.
put into the system, doesn't it?
Exactly. And cost of living goes up, and they claim that wages are keeping pace, but they're not, because they use hedonic adjustments and substitution and change the basket when they calculate the consumer price index. And so inflation, the reported inflation, is a lot lower than the actual prices. And yeah,
CPI, eh? More like the CPI.
no, exactly.
For sure, mate. For sure, definitely. Um, what were you seeing that didn't add up, mate? You reckon, Paul, the most? And what was the specific moment that made it all clear to you? I know you said it really wasn't one, but was there something?
Yeah,
The pieces of the puzzle were clipping together that something really locked it in for you.
yeah, I think it was just, well, a few things, I guess. I mean, first of all, I was talking about how I felt I was playing an important role as an investor by taking my clients' capital and allocating it to the best businesses around the world who put that capital to productive use to create more capital.
Yeah.
And when companies create more capital, their profit goes up, and that pushes their share prices higher. So a rising stock market is reflective of really good things going on in the economy, of the economy actually becoming wealthier. But then central banks started driving stock prices higher by just taking interest rates down to zero or printing trillions of dollars to buy assets to drive stock markets higher, and then try pull the economy up with those asset prices.
Yeah.
So theory will tell you that's not going to work. And it hasn't worked. It's worked to drive asset prices higher, but it's done great harm to the economy.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of the first thing that it's really making me angry, that they were putting Wall Street ahead of the real economy. And then what was even worse, in my opinion, was what they did to housing markets. So in 2001, when the US had a very mild recession, it was only 1/4 of economic contraction. the US had benefited from this wealth effect during the dot-com boom, the technology craze in the 90s, and
Yep.
people's portfolios were going up and they're spending more money because they feel wealthier. And then you had people like Paul Krugman and Paul McCauley who were telling the Fed that they should start a new wealth effect in the housing market. So take interest rates down to 1%, despite the fact that the economy is still growing. So you reduce mortgage rates, and that would serve to drive housing prices higher. And so that's exactly what happened. You had that crazy housing boom in the 2000s in the US. Canada followed suit. The Bank of Canada lowered their interest rate as well. We had a crazy housing boom here. And people borrow on their homes and spend it. And that's good for GDP, but all GDP is a measure of final spending.
Yeah.
So GDP going higher is only good if it's a result of more capital being produced, which gives people the wherewithal to go and spend more. But if people are spending more because they're borrowing more, then it's not sustainable. And it's not a sign of a healthy economy. And so they ended up blowing up the whole housing market. You had the greatest financial crisis since the 1930s. But rather than saying to themselves, well, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Maybe we shouldn't have interfered with the price discovery mechanism of capital markets, of housing markets. No, they doubled and tripled down on it by printing trillions of dollars
Yeah.
and buying treasuries and mortgage-backed securities to distort markets even more. And then it got worse, even worse after COVID, of course, when they printed trillions more. And so now we are in a state or a position like in Canada and Australia in particular, the housing affordability crisis is terrible.
Oh,
A
it's
whole
bad here, mate.
generation, a whole generation is being priced out of the housing market. And now it's happening in the US. The average age of the first-time home buyer in the US is 40 years old.
It's
This
ridiculous,
is
isn't it? Just
it's a
ridiculous.
crime. It's a
Yeah.
crime.
You
I
should be able to be
uh,
buying your first home somewhere in your 20s, eh? Not in your 60s.
exactly. And there was an economist who was talking about this, and he was saying that the global fertility rate now is below replacement,
Yeah. Well, here in
below the
Australia,
replacement.
we run at 1.6%, I think it is, our birth rate, and you have to be 2.1% just
Yeah,
to
yeah,
to maintain level.
yeah. No, exactly.
So
And he
hence the
was
reason,
saying
I
that,
guess, why we cop so much immigration.
well, and that's another issue, but this economist was saying the reason that the global fertility rate has declined is because housing prices around the world have soared. Now, a house has no business going up in price. A house is not a productive asset.
No.
I said earlier that in a free market capitalist system, you're only supposed to benefit to the extent that you're benefiting somebody else.
Yes.
That somebody else is benefiting from the capital that you produce, and now you're that much better off as well. So whatever wealth you have is supposed to be reflective cumulatively of wealth that other people out there also have.
Yep.
Now, our house, we live in a suburb of Toronto. We bought it in 2001, just when these housing wealth effect policies of the Fed started. So our house has gone up 4 times in price.
Crazy, eh?
Now, now our house has not grown 4 times in size. Our house is not producing 4 times as much stuff as it was back in 2001.
No.
So if we make 4 times on our home, who else out there is also 4 times better off? Nobody, because our house is not producing 4 times as much capital. But it's even worse than that. It's not just that somebody else is not 4 times better off. Somebody out there is 4 times worse off because they have to pay 4 times what we paid for the same economic good. So it's a
Yeah.
redistribution of wealth from the next generation or from a newcomer to our country, from their bank account into our bank account. We benefit at their expense. That is not capitalism. So the next generation is getting screwed in large part. Like, I'm a baby boomer, I'm 64 years old. And to a large extent, the enormous mortgage debt of the next generation is helping to fund the retirement of my generation. And to me, this is immoral.
Yeah,
And it's going to be the first time in modern history that the next generation is going to be worse off than the one that preceded it.
yeah. How
All
does that
because of
end well?
this.
How does that end well, Paul?
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Because
And
the
the
next
next generation
generation
is not,
after them would end up even worse off again, wouldn't they? So you just go and
they
start and
will.
perpetually go
Well,
backwards out of sight.
well, yes, but that's not going to happen because the math doesn't work. Like they can't afford to buy our homes at the prices that they are right now. And so the prices are going to have to come down. And you can't force them down, but what I think should happen, and at the end of my book, I sort of end on a positive note that I think we can fix things.
Yeah.
And I have sort of 10
Me too.
steps that I think we need to go through. And number one is to stop rapidly increasing the money supply. Number two is to stop distorting interest rates far below their natural rate just to drive asset prices higher. And number three is that Wall Street and investors need to know finally that central banks are not going to come to their rescue. They're not going to bail them out from reckless, leveraged, speculative bets. And just those three things alone would bring asset prices back to their intrinsic level, if you will, and to their fair level. Now, it's going to be painful for those, particularly my generation, who've seen their stock portfolios and their house prices go through the roof, and they didn't have to do anything to, to obtain that.
Yeah.
And it's not that my generation has done anything wrong. We've played by all the rules. We went to school. We worked hard. And most people in my age never really thought about it in these terms. They just thought, hey, house prices just go up all the time. Well, no, they've just been going up over the last 25 years because of central bank policy. And you just happen to be the right age to benefit from that. But make no bones about it, you're benefiting at somebody else's expense. And when I tell people this, the vast majority of them get it right away and would be happy to see, well, maybe not happy, but would accept their house price going back to, at least in real terms, what it was when they bought it. And yeah, so I am hopeful that 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 we can get to a better place, that we can fix this system and make the system fairer, that your benefits are a result only of your contributions and not coming at somebody else's expense. But people just have to be educated about how the system is working. And
Yeah,
I think
for
it will
sure.
happen. I
And
do.
that's the key, like trying to get, it has been for me, mate, becoming aware of how the system actually is designed and how it works and what's going on and what's led us to the place that we're at now,
Yeah.
and it's, yeah, and like you said, it's just not sustainable in any way, shape, or form, and it's going to be terribly detrimental to our kids and our grandkids,
No,
which is just detrimental
absolutely.
to society at large.
No, absolutely. People are angry.
Yeah,
People are
deservedly so
so
too.
people are so angry and divided. Like, I'm doing this from the Florida, and the United States is so divided now, and naturally so. So a lot of people don't understand why life is becoming more difficult, but you still need to find someone to blame. And
Yeah,
so then the natural result is that Democrats will blame Republicans and Republicans will blame Democrats. And now they can't even talk to each other. So if you look at, I put this in one of my recent blogs, you look at presidential approval ratings. So currently, something like 85% of Republicans approve of Donald Trump, but only about 5% of Democrats do. Now, when Biden was in power, you had 85% of Democrats approving, but only 6% of Republicans. Back in the 50s, 49% of Democrats approved of what Eisenhower was doing, a Republican president.
Yeah.
In the 60s, 49% of Republicans approved of what Kennedy was doing, a Democrat. So the United States was much less divided. People could still talk to each other and solve problems and figure things out and do things together. It's
Yeah.
almost impossible now. And I think it's in large part because of this monetary system that is pitting people against each other, generations against each other, different income levels against each other. But it's not the people that are to blame, it's a system. And as bad systems, bad corporate cultures, bad environments bring out the very worst in very good people.
Done it ever.
Like,
Done it
I
ever.
mean, I mean, I admit it. I've been in situations, environments, brought out the very worst in me. It's, oh God, I can't believe I said that or did that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we all have it in us.
Yeah.
But
We're
we
only
all
human,
also
mate, eh?
all,
We're only
yeah,
human.
and we all
None
have
of
it
us are
in us to be.
infallible, and we all have faults
No,
and weaknesses, and greed and fear, I think, are the two biggest players out
yeah,
there.
but we
Well,
also have good in us. And most
lots.
people, I think, are very good people. Like they want to see other people do well. They like to see other people happy. They like to help people, like to see other people succeed. It's as long as they know that person's not succeeding at my expense,
Yeah, that's right. But
right?
the way I look at it, Paul, is like that system has developed exactly what you've just said a minute ago in regards to pitting people against each other in all sorts of ways. Through monetary terms, as in you make more than me, and it seems unfair, and race, as in different races, breeds of people against each other, men
Hmm.
against women, all of it, and it's just
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like it's so detrimental. But what that does is, while we're all busy fighting each other, no one's got any time to be able to actually pay attention and look at what's actually going on behind the curtain, eh? And
Hmm.
who's pulling the strings and who's benefiting.
Well, it's a lot easier just to be angry,
Yeah,
and sometimes it feels good to be angry,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or
This is
find
true.
someone to be angry at. Oh yeah, that felt really good.
Yeah,
And
doesn't do you much good in the long run, though,
no,
unfortunately.
absolutely not.
Yeah. Um, some good stuff there, mate. Some really good stuff. I'm just trying to pick where to go from here. You talk about wealth disparity not being an accident. In simple terms, how do current economic policies actually contribute to that gap getting wider, Paul?
Yeah. So start off by saying that there should be wealth disparity, but wealth disparity should be based on your contributions to society versus other people's. So yours may be less or more. So if you and I both own a bike shop and you decide to make 10 bikes a week, and I decide I'm only going to make one bike a week because I'm going to go bird watching or watch YouTube or whatever, then your wealth is going to be 10 times what my wealth is. Now, there is nothing immoral about that. That is completely fair. Society's benefiting 10 times more from your efforts than they are from mine. I, how can I have a gripe about that? Right?
Yeah.
But wealth disparity should be here, let's say, but instead it's like that. And this extra part is due to central banks' um, involvement in driving asset prices higher artificially, driving asset prices higher due to printing money or distorting the interest rate far below the natural rate of interest. And this is the issue. So, if people see like a movie star on a yacht or in a or a sports celebrity in a really nice home. For the most part, I think people don't begrudge them that because they say, well, look, that person's very successful, and we are all willing to pay to watch them in a movie or go watch them in a stadium play whatever sport it is. And they've earned that fairly. We've all willingly handed over our money so we can enjoy that entertainment that they provide. But if they see a hedge fund manager on a luxurious yacht, it's harder for them um, to identify with exactly what that person's contribution to society was. Now, some of them do contribute to society, but because of central banks, many of them have been able to extract from society significantly more wealth than they've contributed. Now, a lot of these people don't even realize that's what's happened.
Yeah.
So if you're an investor and your stock portfolio is going higher, you put it down to your own efforts. If it's going down, it's a stupid market. So it's like the definition of a stock market genius. Well, that's a rising stock market, right?
Yeah.
That's it. And don't confuse brains with a bull market, all these sayings. But it's true, it's human nature,
Yeah.
right?
Very true.
But that's where people, I think, get upset, and rightly so, is that a lot of people, it's a small percentage of the population, but it's still in absolute terms, it's a lot of people, are benefiting significantly from this system, which is taking from other people.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
It's
very
making that gap
unfair.
just go wider and wider and wider, isn't it?
No,
Big time.
exactly,
Like
exactly.
the
And
amount of the
and
amount of
it's
wealth that is in the top 10% or even in the top 1% as opposed to the rest of society is just astronomical.
it is crazy. Actually, I've got those numbers here. So, uh, so, so this is in the US. This is equities and mutual funds. So the top 1% of people in America own 50% of equities and mutual funds. The top 10% own 87% of all equities and mutual funds. The bottom 50% own only 1% of that.
It's
So
it's just
there's 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 nothing wrong with wealth disparity as long as it's based on your actual contributions, because
contributions.
that means the rest of the world is better off,
Oh,
that much
that's
better
right.
off because of your contributions.
Yeah, and
But that's
there's no way that 1% have pr produced that much
no,
capital
exactly,
into society to be able to make the world
exactly.
that better off for them to end up with that much astronomical wealth.
No, exactly. And just to reiterate, that top 1%, I'm sure they have created a lot of wealth. They have created a lot of capital. They're not bad people. They've played by all the rules, and they would be very wealthy if it wasn't for central banks. But because of central banks, they're that much more wealthier. That's the issue, right? So, what I try to help people understand is, it's a system. It's a bad system. It's not bad people. So try not to get angry at the people. Try to get angry at the system and affect change. Because, if any of your listeners happen to be in a position of that top 1%, that maybe you're born into a rich family, or you happen to come up with you're an entrepreneur, very successful entrepreneur, like a Steve Jobs or something like that, where you create a lot of wealth.
Yeah,
Don't be angry at these people for creating wealth.
no,
Be angry at the system for giving them even more wealth than they deserve.
yeah, no, 100%. I couldn't agree more, Paul. Couldn't agree more, mate. Well and truly. All right, legends. We're going to pull up stumps here today. on this fabulous interview with Paul Musson. We've run out of time, unfortunately, today, but I'm sure you've got a lot out of it so far, because I know I have. And make sure you tune in again next week, for the second half of this fantastic interview with Paul, and we can both all keep getting educated together. Until then, stay well and keep on stacking. Cheers.
This has been another episode of The Rodney Bull Show, a Rebel Edge production. Please share with your family and friends, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review.